Hello, this is Morteza Kordi, and in this tutorial, we are going to learn about how to handle a button click. So here it is my layout. So just open the content underline main.xml file. If you don't know how to open this file, you just need to open the Android view, open the app folder, res folder, and then open the layout folder. And here it is our content underline main.xml. So let me double click on this tab in order to make this area wider. So take a look at this button here. This is our first button, right? So just select it, and on the right hand side, we can see these attributes that are related to this button, right? So here, take a look at these icons here at the top. We have this icon, which is actually the search icon. We have this one, it says view fewer attributes. If I click on this icon, now it's gonna only show us some specific attributes. And at the bottom, it says view all attributes. If I click on it again, you can see all of the attributes that are related to this button. So here, we have the ID attribute at the top. So let's change the ID. First, let me tell you that what is ID? The ID is going to help us to interact with that specific component, that specific user interface component from our Java codes. We are going to learn more about this later. For now, just know that each component inside the user interface must have a unique ID. So here we have this button, right? So for me, this button, the ID of this button is button 2. So let me delete this value, and now I can say button 1. So I changed the ID of this button to button 1, and then press on enter key on your keyboard in order to submit this value. So now let's select this button, the second button, and here again, let's change the ID of this button. Let's say that the ID of this button is button 2. Let's select this button. And for the ID here, let's say that the ID of this button is button 3. And finally, for this one, this button, let's change the ID to button 4. And then press an enter key on your keyboard. So I specified a unique ID for each of these buttons inside the user interface. So take a look at this text view here. I want the text of this text view to be at the center horizontal of this view, this text view. So in order to change the place of this text inside this text view, we should take a look at the gravity attribute. The gravity attribute is going to specify the position of the child inside its parent. So select this text view. So we know that the text inside this text view is the child of this text view. So now let's search for this attribute, gravity. And here, just open this gravity attribute by just clicking on this little triangle. And here we have this center horizontal attribute. Just check this checkbox. And now you can see that this text is positioned center horizontally inside this text view. So now that the gravity attribute is set for this text view, now I want to specify that what happens when this button, for example, this one is clicked. So let's also change the text of these buttons. So select this button here, and now let me search for the text attribute here. So just click on this search icon, and here we can actually search for a specific attribute. So just type in here text. So here, in order to change the text of this button, we have this text attribute here. So just select it, and now change the button to button 1, and then press on enter key on your keyboard. So now let's select this button here, and let's change the text to button 2, this one, button 3, and finally this one is button 4. So now I want to specify that what happens when these buttons are clicked. So for example, take a look at this button 1 here. What happens when this button is clicked? Let's run the app. So because I want to show you that what do I exactly mean. So let's select one of these devices. So I want to choose this one, Android emulator, and then click on OK. So now that the app is actually running on this emulator, we have these buttons, right? So let's click on this button 1 here. We can see that when I click on this button, nothing happens. This one, again, nothing happens. So I want something to happen when these buttons are clicked or touched. So let's go back to Android Studio. And this time here, Select this button here, button 1. And now let's close this search here. And here, let's search for the onClick attribute. So let's actually, here inside the search bar, just search for onClick. And here we have this attribute that is related to this button, onClick. So inside this empty area, type in here, button 1 is clicked. You can see that I am using the camel case here in order to specify the name of this attribute, the value. So I said button 1 is clicked. And let's select the button 2. And again, for the onClick attribute, just type in here, button 2 is clicked. And then press an enter key on your keyboard. Let's select this button here, button 3. And here just type in button 3 is clicked. And then press an enter key on your keyboard. And finally, we have button 4. Just select it. And inside this empty area of this onClick attribute, just type in here, button 4 is clicked. Button 4 is clicked. And then press an enter key on your keyboard. So now that we specified a value for the onClick attribute of all these buttons here inside our user interface, button 1, button 2, and button 3, and button 4, now it's time to go inside the main activity.kt, the main activity file. So if you don't know how to find this file, you just need to open the Android view, and then open the app folder. We have this Java folder, open it, and we have this package, the first package actually. It says, for mine is com.example.mortazasaadat.plantquiz. So open this package, and here we have main activity. So let's double click on this tab in order to make this area wider. So here it is, the main activity class that inherits from the app_compat activity. I'll talk more about app_compat activity. This is actually related to backwards compatibility in order to, for example, make our app compatible with the older versions of Android operating system. And here we have the onCreate method. So this is one of the Android lifecycle methods. Again, we are going to talk more about the Android lifecycle methods later in this course. But the onCreate method is actually one of them. So the onCreate method is going to be called whenever the app is actually run. Whenever the user starts running the app, the onCreate method is called. And here we have the onCreate options menu method. So this is related to menu. I'll talk more about this later. And we have also this one, onOptions item selected. So this is related to the actually clicking of the items of our menu. So we are going to learn more about menus later in this course. For now, just ignore these two methods. Now, let's take a look at this one, onCreate method. So here, we know that the onCreate method is called whenever the user runs the app. So let's go inside this method, onCreate method, and let's say toast.makeText. So first we need to pass this as the context. So here, this refers to the main activity class. So let me show you what is actually context. Let me show you this post here at inside the Android documentation, developer.android.com/reference/android/content/context.html. So here is the definition of the context in Android. As you can see, the context is actually an abstract class that extends from the object class. It is inheriting from the object class. Let's take a look at this definition here. Interface to global information about an application environment. This is an abstract class whose implementation is provided by the Android system. It allows access to application-specific resources and classes, as well as up calls for application level operations such as launching activities, broadcasting, and receiving intents. So I'll talk more about intents later. For now, just note that it just allows, the context allows us to access the application specific resources and classes. So let's go back to Android Studio. So first we must pass the context, which is going to be this main activity. And here, as the second argument, we need to pass the value that we want to show to the user. So I want to say that the onCreate method is called. The onCreate method is called. And finally, we need to specify the duration of the message. So here we can say toast dot length short or length long. Let's choose length short. And finally, this is very important. We must call the show method on this toast object. So here just type in dot show. So let me create a new line so that you can see what's going on here. First we say toast with capital T dot make text. First we need to pass the context, which is going to be this, and then the text. So we said the onCreate method is called, and finally we need to specify the duration of this message. So toast that length short, and here we must call the dot show method. So now let's run the app. So at the top menu, just click on run and then click on run app. Let me show you the emulator. So now the app is running on this emulator. So here it says the onCreate method is called, right? You saw that toast message. So if I actually run this app again run. Now it's gonna run the app again and it's gonna say the onCreate method is called. So now let's go back to Android Studio. So here, this is my onCreate method. So here, take a look at this ending curly brace. This is the ending curly brace of this onCreate method. After the ending curly brace of this onCreate method, inside this main activity class, I'm gonna create another method. Let's say fun. So now let's open the content underlying main.xml file. Let's click on this button one here, right? So the onClick attribute of this button one is button one is clicked. This is the value of this attribute. So this value is actually the name of a function or method. So let's go to main activity class, and here we set fun, right, in order to create a function. So now inside this content underlying main.xml here, select this button one, and here we have the onClick attribute. So just select this value and then copy this value. You can right click on this value and then click on the copy, or you can just hold down the command key on your keyboard and then press on the letter C key on your keyboard. And if you are using a Windows machine, you just need to hold down the control key on your keyboard and then press on the letter C key on your keyboard in order to copy this value. Or if you want to, you can actually manually write this name, this function name, inside the main activity class. So let's go into this main activity class. So this is fun, right? And here I can just paste this value. It says button one is clicked. So this is very important. The name of this function must be the same as the name of the value of this onClick attribute of this button one inside this content underlying main.xml. So let's go back to main activity class. So it says fun, button one is clicked, and here we need to put a pair of parentheses. We need to specify an argument for this function, which is going to be of type view. So here I can say button view. So this is the name of the argument, button view, colon, and it is going to be of type view. So we all know that the button user interface component is actually a subclass of the view class. So that's why we must put the button view here, so that we can actually refer to that specific button later. I'll talk more about this argument later, but for now, we must put this argument here. This parameter actually, button view of type view. So let's open and close this function by using these curly braces. Inside this function, I can create a toast message. So let's copy and paste this toast message here, this toast code that we put inside this onCreate method, and let's paste it inside this button one is clicked function. So it says toast.makeText context this text, and here we can say actually the button one is clicked. So let's delete this value inside the quotes, and let's say the button one is clicked. And here for the third argument, we specified the duration. So toast.length short dot show. So now let's run the app. Let me show you the emulator. And now I want to click on this button one. Let's click on it. And here it says the button one is clicked. If I click on it again, now it's gonna again show me this toast message. Again. So that's the button one is clicked function. Whenever I interact with this button one here, this method button one is clicked is actually called. Okay. So now we have also some other functions for the other buttons. For example, button 2 is clicked, button 3 is clicked, or button 4 is clicked. So now that you know how it is implemented, pause the video and then do this on your own. create other functions for the other buttons and then put a toast message inside those functions and then show a value to the user. So pause the video, and then if you're confused or don't know how to proceed, again, play the video, and then I'm going to show you how you can actually create other functions. So let's go back to work. Again, we need to put fun here. So after the ending curly brace of this button one is clicked, here inside this main activity class, I need to say fun. And this time I'm going to actually type this name manually. So button 2 is clicked. And then I put a pair of parentheses, button view. So just open and close this function by using these curly braces. So let's copy and paste this toast message inside this function. So as you can see here, it's showing us an error. I forgot to put a colon and then the type of this parameter here. So now we have this toast message. So again, the context is this. The text is going to be button 2 is clicked. The duration is short and the show method is called. So let me again copy this button 2 is clicked function and let's paste it here inside this class. And this time, as you can see, it's showing us an error. We cannot create two methods with the same name. So we need to change the name of this method to button 3 is clicked. So now the error is gone. And here for this toast message, let's say the button 3 is clicked. Okay, so again, let's copy this function and again, let's paste it here. So this time again, we need to say button 4 is clicked, and for this toast message, we can say the button 4 is clicked. So let's run the app now. Let me show you the emulator. So here is the toast message. So if I click on this button 1, it says the button 1 is clicked. If I click on this button 2, it says the button 2 is clicked. Button 3, the button 3 is clicked, and finally the button 4 is clicked. So that's it. If you have any questions about these concepts that I've taught you so far, please post a discussion in the course and then I'll do my best to answer all of your questions. In the next tutorial, we're going to actually continue adding features to this application. So I look forward to seeing you in the next tutorial.